But I want to be safe before anything. And we still have questions that have not been answered.
I appreciate and I respect what you shared. I like the word torn, because I think a lot of educators would support what you're saying. I think there's a huge lament, more so in as an educator feeling neglected or not considered. Shauna and I have talked about this, and it's still prevalent today. Everything is about what's in the best interest of the child when it comes to decision making on why we do anything. And I'm hearing you say the seniors are like, what's the point? The fact that they're not even turning their cameras on, they've already graduated in their mind.
Yes.
It's formality at this point. So I guess my question from listening to you as well as the rest of the panel, when does in the best interest of the child move to also understanding that the teachers are the ones who are dealing with the children? So when does the best interest of the child become inclusive of what's going on with the teachers? It seems like the best interest of the child always overlooks the people who are dealing directly with the children. And we're not cyborgs or terminators or machines. We are human beings. And I know all of us are passionate about what we do as educators. But at the same time, we have lives, we have families, we have things outside of our profession that matter to us. And too often, we're being asked to disregard all of that. And I don't know if that actually is in the best interest of the children. I was listening to Mr. Thompson talk earlier, and one thing I had to process, and I've been talking about Shauna about this. So I know the whole issue of suspending children, which is a whole separate subject. I'm bringing it up for this reason. So if the children remain in the classroom, not to say they should be suspended, that creates an increase in disruption. The increase in disruption creates an increase in anxiety for the teacher or frustration, whatever word you would want to use. And yet they're still expecting the teacher to teach as if that emotion doesn't exist. And now with the height of the pandemic, this is the challenge that we're dealing with, right? We're supposed to act as if this pandemic doesn't exist, because I heard Elizabeth share, they're still doing testing. And so this is a mad push, right? To make sure we get these kids in the right place to transition to the next grade level within 2 months, so we don't have a lot of kids being retained. So I'd love to hear everyone's thought real quick on just how do you feel like you're going to be able to deal emotionally while also working with the kids?
Well, Mr. Jones, it's interesting you say that, because we're still going to do virtual teaching at school. It won't look any different. And that's one reason why the students are saying, what's the point? Am I coming to school to still be on my laptop? And I said, yes. But yes, anxiety plays a factor. I have been dealing with anxiety attacks for the past year and a half. So yes, I can't really focus on you because I'm trying to focus on being safe from you. So how can I be effective? I can't be effective the way I want to be, or the way I think I used to be.
I feel that. I think it's hard because, like you were saying, Mr. Jones, with the acting like a cyborg, is they want us with these kids every single day. And it's exhausting, not only the pandemic, but literally everything that's been going on these past 6, 7, 8 months. and coming to school. And sometimes it's like, I'm mentally exhausted. And I feel like I can't pour into my kids some days because so much is being expected from me when the schools and when the districts and when the states are just acting like it's a normal school year.
Mr. Thompson or Seminary, any thoughts? Shauna, did you want to?
I was curious. Elizabeth, you said your state testing are still moving forward as normal in Florida?
Yes, we got a phone call last week. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I answered it, and it was a pre-recorded message, and they're like, in regards for state testing, I'm like, this is it. And they're like, state testing will resume as normal. And I was like, oh, damn it. But
wow.
Yeah, we still have state testing.
You wonder, what's the real point around that now? Here in Maryland, they have decided not to move forward with those state assessments, if I'm understanding correctly. And if I'm misunderstanding, please someone tell me. But I understand they have recently made some decisions around that. So we're all over the place, right? Across the country, we're all over with what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And, so Mr. Thompson or Simone, you want to jump in here on that?
Well, I'm in agreement. I think that we are all over the place, but just to go back for a minute to what Mr. Jones Cortland was saying is the fact that, sure, there are a lot of anxieties. And I think that this is an issue that we are going to have to address for success in education. We have different states that have different thoughts, but yet we have jobs and we have careers that typically supposedly say that we have all the same requirements. But yet when we look at a community and we look at classrooms, we look at buildings, they're supposed to be communities. And so we actually violate the community when teachers don't have a voice in the direction for what it is that they're trying to do. And what's not understood is this adds to the anxiety. Because, you could go over to Facebook right now, you can go to Twitter, you can go to Instagram, and you're seeing multiple teachers that are really partying out their anxiety. And so as we continue to evolve into a restorative school system in a county, that's the way we can only deal with the anxiety in the classroom, not only from COVID, but from behavior that we're giving all the investors and those connected and involved a voice to be able to talk about the issues that we're all struggling with. Because as much as we look at classroom discipline, that's not always about the student. A lot of that comes from the conditions of a student. And so now we're adding another level in terms of COVID, like Mr. Hughes was saying. See, I was in my room the other day and I had another teacher. She just rolled up in and peeled her mask back and started talking. And I was like, I sort of shifted my position to get back to the door, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm trying to be safe. And so those are the kind of things that needs to be addressed, and they're not being addressed. And we're doing a back pocket kind of mode of education because we just don't know what everything. We're talking 4 to 6 weeks of these kids being in school, right? 2 or 3, 2.5 is just going to be about trying to repaint the rules with the minor number of students that we have instead of stopping and put a system in place that could be effective in the case in the near future that we have to roll back out. Because we still don't know where the numbers might go because everybody's dropping their masks now, feeling I got the shot and I'm safe, and there are other variants out there. So anxiety is going to be high. Anxiety is going to be high. And we have to we should be considering it on a higher level, but being restorative, that's the community. But the community is all stakeholders should have a voice. And then we come to a consensus.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Seminary, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I want to kind of address what you guys said earlier about, what are teachers doing? And honestly, I think for years, teachers' voices, although we share them, I don't think they've always been taken in consideration. So I don't think this is the first time that, something has happened where we really want to voice our opinions and it's highly taken into consideration. And so as much as teachers have shared how much they don't feel like, because even though people tell us, do self-care, practice self-care, they really think we're these superhuman people. And I think, Mr. Cortland, you talked about that. And so, just with just going back the expectations of wanting to keep everybody safe when you really can't. You can only do your part. But then when you have adults who come into your classrooms or in your office spaces and
sounds like Seminary may have lost you again, but I hear what she's saying. Sometimes it's not even the kid issue; it's the, adult, the relationship. Somebody who just decides that they want to come in your classroom and take that mask off and that type of stuff. And where are the protocols around that? You're like, yeah, I know we're cool, and maybe you had this, but what's going to be the protocol? And you want everybody to feel comfortable and safe when everybody goes back. So that's real.
So I want to real quick, Shauna shared this quote with me involving Marva Collins. We wanted to highlight Voices of Our Heritage, Village Talk Honors. We want to make sure we try to continue this celebration of Black history beyond February. And I think this is an appropriate place to share this quote. Marva Collins was an educator herself, widely respected for what she did in the Chicago area with impoverished youth. And this particular quote, I want to read it, and then I want to hear from each panelist how they use their faith to aid them in dealing with the reality of this pandemic. And the quote by Marva Collins says, "There isn't a certain time we should set aside to talk about God. God is a part of every waking moment." And so I would love to hear, beginning with Elizabeth, because she's currently in the classroom dealing with both sides of the virtual world and everything that's going on in the physical classroom as well. So we want to hear from each panelist, beginning with Elizabeth. How does your faith assist you with this pandemic, teaching during the pandemic?
If I didn't have my faith, if I didn't have my God, I would not be able to be in the middle of March and still teaching in person with as crazy as this year has been. It's every day, and sometimes it's every hour. I'm praying on my way to school. I'm starting off with prayer, asking God to give me the patience with these kids, but also to give me the ability to reach my children and also make sure that I'm staying safe. My children are staying safe. My coworkers, my community, my school is staying safe. With that, it's just praying through that anxiety and asking God to let go of it. Once those kids come in the door, help me to put my thoughts aside and do what I need to do to get that job done. And it's really helped with, I think God has helped. I'm still anxious and nervous about every little thing that pops up, but I think it has helped. I think God has taught me this year to kind of take a seat, chill out, kind of calm down in some ways that I can, because there's not everything that I can control. And I've learned through my numerous prayers that God is just telling me to, have those relationships. The state testing is still going to happen. There's nothing I can do about that. I still have to put in the grades. I still have to give those district assessments, but just kind of, we're all in this together, and just kind of focus on those relationships, seeing where those kids are, and not be so focused on the structure and the rigor as much as I have been in the past few years.
Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Simone, you there?
Yep, I am here. So prayer has always been, my go-to thing. And the last couple of years, I've been really heavy on praying for the school system and adopting schools, to just pray for them, because prior to the pandemic, there was already issues that was going on. So before all of this happened last year, I was looking to put my 2 weeks in, because I was just overwhelmed with teaching and all the things that was coming with it. And so I felt like one of my answered prayers when we had this time to be out of school, and then it continued and continued and continued. And so then we was virtual. It was like, wow, it gives me really a break for me to really reassess if this is what I still want to do. And so just praying every day that God keeps those who are already back into the building safe, keep these families and these students healthy. Because while we know that, children have different home environments and different circumstances, that I couldn't allow that to be another burden that I took on because they were not at school. So I just prayed constantly for their safety